Yes, it's so easy.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Good.
All right, you ready?
We have a lot more people that actually
Yeah, they're
registered.
only coming.
Should we
We'll start because we've got to.
start anyways?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because I've got to end at 1, but
Okay.
we'll have, that'll be an interesting thing. People come in and out all the time. By the time I'm done with my stuff, more people will be showing up.
Gotcha. All right, let me get down. Is this testing? Can you hear me?
All right, everyone. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. It's been we're on summer schedule, so we have these weeks where we're on, and then we have weeks where we're off. And so, on your tables is the complete summer schedule. Make sure you're paying attention to that. We will not be here next week, but 2 weeks from now, we've got another great speaker, and it'll be a new speaker. Ray Williams will be speaking for us. Ray is a counselor here in the Twin Cities, partners with us here at Wooddale with a lot of our folks. Can we go to that next slide there, Dave? There we go. And so he's going to be talking about how do you help kids manage their emotions in kind of that jungle of emotional triggers. And so, and then our folks who run Reengage, Jim and Stephanie Teal, are going to be speaking on July 25th. They're going to be talking about a surprising gift for your marriage. So those of you who are married, that may be one that you want to come to. If you ever want to get married and you're single, it might be one that you come to just to get ready for that marriage. All right, surprising gift for marriage. August 1st, my favorite speaker of the summer is going to be here. I'm sorry, Gigi and Remi, but my sister's going to be here, right? So, I'm so excited. She's coming up from Chicago, and if you know my sister's story, she was diagnosed with cancer a couple of years ago, and they didn't think she'd make it through the year, right after giving birth to her daughter, her first child, and she is a walking miracle right now, and she's going to be talking about when your world crumbles, hope for sufferers, and it's going to be an emotional and a beautiful day. And then Todd Mulliken, one of our best counselors that we work with, is going to be talking about knowing the difference between passive, assertive, passive-aggressive, and aggressive communication. Dan Carlson is able to just give the title of that seminar, and just by, Dan, give me the title really quick, just for those in the room.
Well,
There you go. Thank you.
I don't want to.
Okay, there you go. There it is in an illustration. So Dan, you don't have to come. Dan just gave it to you. All right. So it's a great seminar, and then we've got a couple more in August as well. So it's going to be a great rest of the summer. We've already begun booking our fall speakers, and I got to tell you, the fall is going to be amazing too. And we're bringing back a number of our favorites to speak in the fall, and they are so excited. They've got topics that they've been working on, and we'll be sharing those with you at the end of July as well. But I'm going to turn it over to one of my favorite people, one of my coworkers. Many of you know Gigi, and Gigi's going to start us out today. She'll introduce herself a little bit. I'm not going to steal her thunder, and then she's going to introduce our guest speaker. So Gigi, come on up.
Thank you, Brian. How's everyone doing today? Hope you're doing well. Well, my name is Gigi. Can you hear me okay on this? It's up. My name is Gigi McKinney, or Gigi McKinney Banks. I work in pastoral care right across the hall here under Pastor Dan Carlson. By trade, my career, I am an executive chef, personal chef, culinary director. I spent 25 years with the Minnesota Vikings football club, 14 years as the culinary director of my department. A lot of people would think that it would be, some man with this tall, toque, but no, it was me. It was me. It was this girl. I fed the team, you guys. I worked alongside the trainers and the dietitian. I created all of the menus, and in doing that, to ensure that they got what they needed when it came to optimal nutrition and how they were fueled as professional athletes. I went through 3 NFL owners, 5 coaches, starting with Coach Dennis Green, if anybody remembers him. I'll give you a fun fact. Dennis Green was the first NFL coach to build a cafeteria within an NFL organization, and then others ended up following later on, and I'm sure everybody now with all the teams have a cafe for the players. Some of the team from the Purple People Eaters era, if any of you guys remember that, I don't know if I was born yet when they came, or maybe, yeah, well, they used to always come in, and they used to tell me stories about how they only had a hot dog truck that came in. Yeah, that's how it started. They had a guy would come in with hot dogs, and that's how they ate for lunch, or they would make a trip to McDonald's. So we've, of course, come a long way throughout the years, amongst so many other things. People have always asked me, well, how much do they eat? So many people imagine them eating boatloads of food individually, but they did not eat like that. But many came in having to learn how to eat properly, for fueling, because they are now in the professional realm. And with that came with what we called at the time the DOT system. I'm going to tell you about the DOT system. The DOT system was like the stoplight, red, green, yellow. We would dot every single piece of food there. Red means stop. So that was like fried chicken, your French fries, your fried fish, things like that. So that was more of a warning, it's high fat, type thing. Yellow, proceed with caution. That were the things that was like maybe breaded or maybe added cheese and things like that. And then we had the green. Green means go. So of course that's your fruits and all your vegetables and things like that. So we dotted everything. So when players came in and they were wondering what to eat, they knew exactly what they needed to do. Okay, does that make sense? I don't think you're doing the DOT system anymore, of course, but that's how we started out. We fed them, you guys, we gave them everything beautifully. I always worked to ensure that they had the best quality food that tasted really good. It was a lot of work. I did 17-hour days during camps. Regular seasons were in the double digits. Sports and entertainment is a very demanding job. Many desire it for the glitz and the glamour, but many can't sustain what it entails. It's tough on anyone that has a family, but so much easier to endure when you do not have a family like that. And I understood both sides of that coin. I managed a team of about 12. Some of the menu work also went into the team airplane. And so I did meals on the airplane when they were doing the London, England trip. Some of you may remember when they played in London a couple of the times. The players were very particular when it came to their meals. And so I would precede them to London to get things set up, special ordered. Me and the dietitian would taste test the food at the hotel that they would be staying at. I'd order food here that they didn't have in London, and I would have it shipped by boat. It was that serious. There were a lot of stark differences that we had to fix to ensure that they were comfortable and that they had what they needed, because we wanted to make sure that they won those games. And by the way, they won those games both times that they were there. Some people had asked, well, why is it so serious? Why is the food so serious? Well, they didn't have Crystal hot sauce or Louisiana hot sauce in London. They didn't have Tony Chachere's or Lori's seasoning salt in London. They didn't have biscuits, you guys. I did an interview a while back with USA Today, I believe it was, and I was telling them about London not having biscuits. They were interviewing me about the big trip and, the menus and nutrition and things like that. Within a few days after the interview, I had 10 cases of Bisquick shipped to me from General Mills. So I shipped a few of those boxes over by boat, and I had the pastry chefs in London to make up the biscuits, and they really enjoyed them. They really didn't know anything about them. Biscuits are like a cookie there. I remember when I was there, I went to a KFC, and I asked for a 2-piece and a biscuit. They had no idea what I was talking about. I remember the guy went and got his manager. They all were gathered around to see, and I'm talking funny to them. Like, who is this lady asking for a biscuit and a 2-piece? And then I kind of was messing with them after that. But they ended up giving me French fries anyways. They don't do biscuits over there. They don't know what that is. Pretty much that's a cookie, So, yeah. At any rate, our regular Winter Park seasons, we'd go through like 160 pounds of chicken wings in a day, 430 scrambled eggs, 20 pounds of bacon, plenty of fresh fish out of the oceans and rivers. I mean, we made sure that fish was fresh, all kinds of different fish. We were even fish we never heard of. We just wanted to try it to say that we had it, you know. Gallons of pasta sauces and meat sauces, just to name a few. It was definitely a lot of work, but very fulfilling for me because I love food service, and that's what I do. It was a blessing all of those years. I learned a whole lot about a whole lot of everything. I grew up there. God has really been good to me, and he still is. It's such a blessing to be here at Wooddale Church, working here in the care ministry with the people of God. It's very rewarding, and working for God is like no other because I'm putting him first. I asked God a few years back, I said, God, will you make the latter part of my life to be the better part of my life? And so I'm on my journey, and I'm on my way to spiritual greatness. I get to do things that were harder to do there. It was hard to be who I knew I was, but that's a story time, you guys. Just put it like this: the higher you go up, the bigger the devil, okay? Remi has been an absolute blessing in my life. She's a good friend. She has a great heart. She's funny and works her butt off over there. They love her. Women not only wear toques, but they also earn their respect in male-dominant organizations. Dr. Famodu-Jackson, she serves as the Head Sports Dietitian for the Minnesota Vikings. While attending graduate school at West Virginia University, she studied sleep, its impact on performance and nutrition among female athletes, and a healthy diet's effect on gut bacteria in young adults. Did I say that right? At West Virginia University, she worked alongside the sports dietitian to help serve the student-athlete nutritional needs, worked in a small bed hospital, and was a dietitian for 2 weight management clinics. Before settling into a more permanent career outside of academia, Remi was a post-doctoral student at the University of Florida before becoming Twin Cities Orthopedics' first full-time dietitian and manager of TCO's nutrition department. Her current specialties include nutrition for exercise and sport, weight management, food sensitivities, and overall quality of life. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome to you, can I call you Femi, your nickname? Dr. Famodu-Jackson. Okay.
Oh man, I don't know how I follow that, Gigi. I've always looked up to Gigi, and when she talks about London, that's actually why I was a little bit late today, so my apologies. We're packing for London, and it has to be shipped by July 10th. So she is serious when it comes to what we can bring over there. And it takes a while. I think our game is October 6th, and we are packing July. So, you know, food is very serious, as she mentioned. That, you know, I got to remember, I have a clicker. Food is very serious, but I think food brings people together. And so a lot of ways, that's how I'm able to connect with the athletes, is through food, through nutrition. How does it make them better? And honestly, I don't think I would be who I was without Gigi in that building. I mean, she was a godsend, someone I relied on. I'm sad to see her go. I've tried to get her back, but I think now I'm just sending athletes her way individually. So she does, you know, personal chef for a lot of athletes that I'm able to get in her door. So Gigi, I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. So, you know, when I was talking to Brian, when I was talking to Gigi, I'm like, this is not a typical group I come to speak to. So if I'm being honest, this presentation is very broad. It's about what I do with the athletes, but then I always love to say, and as Gigi mentioned in my background, I love to translate it. So things that I do for the athletes, you're gonna see, is nothing super special that I wouldn't say to you guys. In the practices I give to them, the same thing for you. Now, when it comes to moderation, or portions, a little bit different for you all. So that's one of the bigger things, is that, as Gigi mentioned, did you say 160 pounds of wings? I think we bumped it up. I don't think that's how many wings we'd probably be feeding the group in here. But otherwise, so yes, and I want to leave time for questions. There might be a lot on this slide, and I'm happy to share these slides with you guys. So if I move kind of fast, just know that you guys have access to this at any point. So About me, I'm actually, really quickly, I'm from Minnesota. So as Gigi mentioned, I went to Ohio, I went to West Virginia, I did my master's, my doctorate there. I love to say that I'm just very interested in health and wellness, especially kind of the natural ways of health, food, sleep, the microbiome, so our gut. I tell people I'm a stool person, not a blood person, and I mean that really seriously. But I want to know, how does our body work in these ways? So how do we look at all the terms of wellness, and how, A, does that impact the athlete, but just us as human beings? I just talked to a female group 2 days ago, and just talking about food, nutrition, wellness for the female. So I feel like that's kind of what I was prepped in. So nutrition's definitely my expertise, but I would say just in terms of wellness, I love that stuff. So yes, I went to Florida for 6 months. My boyfriend, now husband, was with me, and we got called up for an opportunity with Twin Cities Orthopedics. And so we were there for 6 months. November, getting the call in Florida to say, hey, can you come back up to Minnesota? Wasn't our ideal trip to come back, but been here ever since with the Vikings, now going on my 6th season with them. So it's been a pleasure. It's been a journey. I've learned a lot along the way. So in terms of just working with the pros, so what do I do? Who do I support nutritionally inside of our building? So 95%, I would probably even go higher, but 95% of my time is really focused on the athlete. Anytime they are in my office, whenever I get a text from them, anytime, they are my priority in that building. And as they should be, they're the ones who feed or basically keep the lights on, as they should. And then I would say 4% is with the football staff, and then the other staff, I'll call them the business staff, is who I support. And when it comes with the athletes, so right now we're at 90, are we at 91? Because we have a guy who's technically overseas. So new NFL rules, you can bring someone kind of as a intern, almost you'd say, red shirt year guy, if they're from overseas. So this guy's from Chile. So we have 91 on the roster. And I say that they're 90 athletes with 90 different personalities. No guy is the same. I have our 2 former running backs, Dalvin Cook, if there are any Vikings fans in the building. Dalvin Cook, one of our amazing runners. I know you worked with Adrian Peterson. Dalvin was probably mine. And then Alexander Madison, we just released last year. But even those 2 inside the same position group had 2 different personalities. And that just depends. Their education, where did they receive education if they did, right? What's their background of care? Who did they grow up with? Dalvin, I'm pretty sure, grew up with his grandma versus Alexander Madison grew up with his mom. So 2 different just environments there. And so when I have to counsel or when I talk with these individuals or get to know them, I have to know that I'm coming from different levels. Everyone's different. Rookies coming in have a different knowledge than the veterans, like Harrison Smith, who's now going, I think, on 12 seasons. And their contracts, how much they make as an athlete, their relationships, their partners, who do they have? So a lot of these guys that I work with, very much so different backgrounds, and I appreciate them for them. I love learning new things and being able to counsel in different ways. As far as the football staff, this is kind of how we're separated. We have basically, our performance staff. So Tyler Williams, he's the VP of Player Health and Performance. He's my direct supervisor. He oversees equipment, nutrition, strength and conditioning, and then athletic training. So most teams function like that. I would say, we have a really good performance staff, very young for sure, but just very good in terms of collaboration. And I'll talk about that as well. But that's kind of usually how it's separated. When it comes to working with the football staff, even Kwesi, our general manager, or scouts or anything, for me in that building is general nutrition. Some of them, I had a person come up to me the other day just talking about his blood pressure, diabetes, things that run in the family. Those are things that usually I can counsel them on, and we do take labs inside of our building. And then the other staff, so our beautiful building, and when Gigi mentioned the cafe, it's that black part right there. It is a beautiful cafe. Now, I do know it could be bigger, and I know we talked about that at some point, just how many people we feed. We feed 400, I want to say about 400 in that building. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So we have about 160 on the football side, and then about 200, I want to say, is on the business side. It's a lot of people that comes out of that kitchen, which, again, Gigi was the director of before. And so it's a lot of food. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but you still were there. You were still there for 2 years. Yeah. But it's a lot of people that we feed, and they do get free meals. So everything that is fed there, that is to the players, is also fed to people in accounting, people on ticket sales, all those. So if you are in that building, you do get free food, and as Gigi mentioned, really good quality food. So for those staff, general nutrition advice. Someone came to me about fatty liver disease the other day, and can counsel through there. But overall, healthy food options inside the facility is how kind of I help with the staff in the building. So kind of going through what exactly I do, us as practitioners like to talk about just these kind of 4 bullet points when it comes to counseling an individual. So assess or evaluate an individual, educate them, implement it, and always collaboration is along the key. So in terms of assessment, how do I know I should be seeing someone? Body composition, weight is in my foreground. I'm very much skilled in evaluating weight when it comes for a player, so all weights go through me. We determine what's a good, healthy weight range for Justin Jefferson. If you heard the name, if you haven't, that's okay, but he's making a lot of money now these days. But any weight, I measure the guys, I weigh them on an almost daily basis, not a daily, weekly basis when we do get in season. So that's in my department. Hydration, we never, unfortunately, I can't remember the guy's name who went down at Winter Park. Corey Stringer. Yep, Corey Stringer. And I apologize that I forgot his name. But unfortunately, we did, back then, I wasn't a part of that, but Corey Stringer did pass away. I was during training camp, I don't know if you were there, for dehydration and heat illness. And so, that's a big thing. Food, you can last, you guys have heard this, you can last quite a few days, even weeks without food. Hydration, can be instant, right? Could be days lasting. And for him, right, he was a bigger guy, dehydrated, and unfortunately passed away in that instance. So a lot of things go into hydration monitoring, supplementation tracking, what the guys take in terms of a multivitamin or any performance enhancing drug. You guys have heard of that. I'm the one skilled in the building to say, hey, should you be taking that, and is it safe? I tell them I don't want them to be that guy who ends up on the screen, right, or on the TV who can't play for 6 months or out for the whole year. So I do take that one very seriously. And if you know me, and when me and Gigi started working, supplements were not allowed in our building. Now they are, but I am a food-first approach. I hope you can get most of your things from food, and then if you can't, that's when we talk supplements. And then nutrition evaluation, just seeing where they're at. One of my bigger quotes that I tell the athletes is, athletes eat and train, they don't diet and exercise. It's just a big thing. I want them to fuel their body. Food is just so important. It's like gas to a car. It's like oil to an engine, right? That's what you need to survive. For these guys, they need it to even perform at its highest level. So I tell them, you eat, right? Let's not talk diet. I had a player texting me on my way here talking about a fast and all those, and I try to eliminate the word diet out of my mouth in general. That's talking to anyone, because I think it kind of has a bad connotation to it. So, eating to fuel our body properly, eating so we can maintain life beyond football after. And then training, right? They have to go out and they train with their position coaches, they train with their head coaches, and that's what I tell them, is that diet and exercise is kind of saved for different populations, but even then I would argue as well. In terms of education, a lot of my stuff is just done in passing with guys. I'll show you our fuel bar here that Gigi helped me. We have I think a slate number cover of it at some point. But a lot of the stuff, my office is really situated in a place for them to gather and ask questions. So a lot of it's one-on-one. I do talk with them at times during group educations in the weight room, just quick hits, and then we use screens throughout our facility to educate them. One of my big players, and I don't know if I mentioned it, that we brought into our cafe, which I'll show you a picture of that, is the Blue Zone. I don't know if anyone has heard of the Blue Zones in this room. Yeah? So again, wellness, I love it. It's a Netflix documentary. I think they talk about living long, healthy lives. So blue zones are, this is where I start to get a little bit nerdy with you guys. So, Brian or Gigi, whoever's tracking me, Dan, if I see the time, if I get off tangent, let me know. But blue zones, there are pockets in the world. I think there are about, I want to say 7 places in the world where people are living long, healthy lives. Over 100, a lot of centenarians, people over 80, 90, but they're not living 80 to 90 and 100 and not remembering their loved ones. At that age, they are. So dementia is not really a thing. They're able to move with their loved ones. They're able to play games. They're able to still work at those ages. And so I wanted to bring that to our building and talk the athletes with that, right? What are you beyond a football player? A lot of you guys are going home to families. Do you want to remember your families in the next 20 or so years? Do you want to be able to move with your families? So blue zones, if you guys are interested in this topic, it's not just nutrition. There's a lot of aspects to why these people are living long, healthy lives, social, spiritual connections in there, just movement, not just going out on a treadmill, but movement. Are you parking far in the parking spot? Are you taking the stairs instead of the elevator? So if you guys are interested, there's a Netflix documentary on this. The guy who actually wrote about the blue zones is from Minnesota. Really cool guy, but that's one thing that we implemented last year that I think it's been a really big hit with people across the building, just healthy eating in general. So who do I collaborate with? Pretty much anyone on that picture that I showed you. But when it comes to big players, sports medicine, that's if a guy sustains an injury or gets an injury, how do we return them to play quicker? How do we prevent injury in the first place? How do we recover after long days? Strength and conditioning, just fueling strategies around when they have high and low days, weight management. Food service, me and the chef, actually, he was just, again, Gigi, I was not joking. We do have a chef opening if you want to come back to us. I know. Yeah, I know. She talks about her growth. But again, the chefs I really do work with on a daily basis. We did, now this I think is my 3rd head chef since being there. So we do have a new guy already. Yeah. It's a lot of turnover in that position. When it gets hot in the kitchen, sometimes it definitely gets hot. But menu oversight, game day fueling, as Gigi mentioned, travel, nutrition, if they're in the air, out of the air, in the locker room, at the hotel, all those things. Anytime the player is considered a Vikings player, I basically have eyes and ears on what they're eating and drinking. And I've okayed it or not okayed it. But outside, what they're doing in their personal life, I have nothing to do with that. And thank you. I can't keep track of that and my own menu. Other RDs within the league, for sure, we're just a small group of us, but we like to push nutrition forward as we think it is an important part of performance. In terms of implementation, the way I practice is, again, what I preach. So in the menu, you'll see it. In our fuel bar, you'll see it. We do a lot of shakes there. We do a lot of snacks around that fuel bar. Meal planning with the chefs. I have an app that helps to track some food and calories for the guys, and then supplementation. So in terms of resources, you guys are just seeing a glimpse, if you haven't made it into our facility, the areas that the guys can come and eat snacks. And I think what I like to point out here is that a lot of the stuff that I give the guys, you guys can find in your local grocery store. So again, I like to say that nothing that I do is super special, but these are milk, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, fruit cups, certain protein bars, applesauce, oatmeal is at the top there. So a lot of these things are stuff that, again, you guys could take with you to practice if you wanted. And I like to, again, nothing special. If it is special, then I think probably it's illegal in the NFL. So a lot of things, natural stuff that we can get the athletes now. Just again, portion size is just a little different. Here is our fuel bar. It's a beautiful, I think, state-of-the-art fuel bar when it comes to Gatorade. I think it is one of its kind, so a lot of people try to come and see it. But they put a lot of money into this, and I think it is well worth the money. And my office is just around the corner. So again, where they can come, congregate, have themselves a snack or a little bit of a light lunch, I'm right there with them. And then the cafe, and if you can look really closely, you'll see in the background there is someone in this room who is in that background. So you made it in that picture, Gigi. You can't even tell, but the hair was shorter then. But yeah, this is our cafe. Again, a very beautiful cafe, I think, made in mind, but we always think that it could be bigger for the people that we feed, but very beautiful cafe. So again, kind of transitioning, so that's what I do with the pros. So again, nothing special. So I want to give you guys some tips, hopefully to take along. And nutrition, I think a lot of you all have probably learned nutrition more than the younger population now coming up. They've taken consumer science out of, I think, teaching courses. They've taken a lot of just things that I think people should take with them in their lives out of education these days. So I think you guys are probably well aware of nutrition, but just to give you guys some tips, and then again, I entertain any questions. There is no such thing as a bad question for me. So if you guys have any questions, please, I am here for you. So when it comes to, nutrition or food, right? If you look at these sayings, which have you heard before? And trust me, I hear these sometimes from athletes, right? It's hard to eat like a rabbit all the time. A lot of people say all I do is just tell them to eat vegetables, right? A salad. Remi, don't tell me that. I can't do that. And I agree, as a person who needs to eat probably 4,000 calories, eating that in vegetables would be probably fruit and vegetables scattered all across the floor of this room. So think about eating that. I'm confused by the information. I'm good at staying active, but bad at eating. Nutrition is my missing link. So a lot of these things, this is what I hear, especially for individuals who are now making the journey into focusing on their nutrition. And when it comes to nutrition, right, this was an article published. This was kind of a really big turning point for me in my studies. There was an article published in 2020. It was called, it was from the Journal of Medical, I think, Association. I think it was out of JAMA. They published a study that said leading causes of death. Right? CDC comes out with it. I highlighted ones, heart disease being the #1, cancer in there, stroke, diabetes, chronic liver disease, and kidney disease. But what they found is a lot of these things are modifiable. A lot of these things come from our daily practices, right? And in another study in 2004, this was in JAMA, they said actual causes of death by tobacco use, which I'm just always shocked about. I don't see a lot of that these days, but still there. Poor diet contributed to about 400,000 deaths a year. Alcohol consumption, microbial agents, so germs maybe, and then others, car accidents, other risky behaviors, right? So if you see that, right, you have things that are modifiable, and that's why they're publishing to say, hey, if you just change any of these practices, be more active, have a better nutrition plan, hopefully limit alcohol and drugs, right? All those things can hopefully decrease what we see as heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. So, just very important, and why I think I continue to do what I do. I love working with my athletes. Don't get me wrong. I love those guys. They're like my little babies. I do have 2 little ones at home, but they're like my children when I go to work. I am considered like the mom in the building. But modifiable risk factors, they keep us healthy, but they save lives, right? Our genetic makeup, who birthed us, all those things, those are things we can't change, but things we can change, being more active, working on our nutrition, all those things also can save us in healthcare costs, but also just live longer lives. And I think that's why I wanted to introduce those blue zones. It's basically those similar practices. So, eating healthy for everyday living, we'll go through hopefully quickly here. If you guys didn't know, every 10 years, doctors, dietitians like myself get together and they talk about the state of the United States and what our nutrition practices are. They're called the dietary patterns across the U.S., right? And then they make recommendations every 10 years. What is happening? What do we see us shortfalling on? And then how can we apply it to the general population? So most of you guys probably have gone through the food patterns over time. You guys remember the My Pyramid? Yeah. I remember the My Pyramid. I know I look young, but I do remember 2010 is when they wiped the My Pyramid, and this is when they went to the Choose My Plate. Still, they still continue with this, and I actually love the My Plate. The reason why they did it is because it's a very rememberable visual that you guys can take with you anywhere. What should your plate look like in terms of breakfast, lunch, and dinner? in order to meet all the nutrients that we see or food groups that we see fall short in the United States population. So half your plate, fruit and vegetables, quarter of your plate being whole grains, and then a quarter of your plate being healthy protein. And then they say this one is the Harvard eating plate, and you'll see, or as you saw in previous slides, people have made different plates when it comes to diabetes, heart disease, athletes. So this, if there's one thing that you can learn about nutrition and just take with you, it's just the My Plate. They have it in schools, they have it everywhere, but very easy, simple plate. And then if you want to dive deeper into your age group, how many calories you should be taking in, just going to the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, you can pull that up, and they'll split it by food groups about how much you should eat. So I really love that tool, very simple, very easy to follow. So in basics of what makes up nutrients, how we should be eating, there's things called macronutrients and micronutrients. Not to get very nerdy and sciencey, but think about macronutrients being the oil or the fuel, the gas to our car. They give us energy. You guys know them by carbohydrates, fat, and protein. About the distribution I have up there is about standard or typical of the American diet, or what we should be taking in. And then things that don't give us energy but help us to produce, to grow, healthy bones, healthy living, healthy heart, is our vitamins, mineral, and water. And so just going into the macronutrients, carbohydrates, I think they get the bad rap, don't they? A lot of people are like, no carbs, no, no, no. And what I just showed you guys, 45 to 65% of your calories should come from carbohydrates. For players, I say the same thing. Why? Is because carbohydrates are the primary energy that our muscles use and our brain. So the keto diet, anybody hear of this? Very, very low carb. Maybe 5% carb. The reason why is because you cannot burn fat without carbohydrates being somewhere in your system. Okay, there's a process in our body that if you don't have carbs, you can't burn fat. So what happens if you don't burn fat or carbs? You burn protein. No one wants to burn protein because it's in our muscle. And that's pretty much the primary place we store it. So as athletes or as individuals, as we age, they show that having a good muscle structure helps with falls, right? Prevention of falls, helps us to move, right? To be more active. So the last thing you want to do, I tell people, if you want to lose muscle, by all means, skip the carbs, especially my athletes. So, but I would be a bad dietitian to tell you to eliminate carbs. Why? We find that in fruits, vegetables, grains, milk, dairy, all those things. So really following a low-carb diet, and if anyone's followed the keto diet, I'm not shaming the keto diet at all. It was actually made for people with epilepsy because they do need to burn fat so they don't have seizures. So keto diet has been around, and as it should be. But I tell people you get a lot of nutrients. I just told you all the food groups that carbs are found in. You get a lot of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, and energy from those food groups. So don't eliminate them, okay? What they say, whole grains, and if you can see that label, what you can tell for something that's a whole grain, you find it, the first ingredient in a carb or in a starch, should say the word whole. That's how you know it's a whole grain. So if you're looking at a bread product and you look at that label, which is regulated by the government, if it says whole, that's how you know it's a whole grain. Okay, that's just a little tip for you there. Brown rice, quinoa, those are whole grains naturally. Oatmeal, whole grain naturally. So choosing high quality is very good. Beans, fruits, vegetables, dairy, oats, those are high quality grains, and again, should make up a majority of our diet. And I love to give little tips in here. This is kind of how I practice, a little bit what I preach. Just try to incorporate whole grain somewhere in your routine. Somewhere in there. If you are a person who always eats a sandwich every day, can you do a whole wheat wrap or whole grain bread? Or are you someone who usually chooses grits? Grits is not a whole grain, but can you switch that out for oatmeal? In the blue zones, beans are very high in fiber. They're very high in iron. So if you can, and in those blue zones, they incorporate a quarter of a cup or a half a cup of beans a day. Also, beans, very inexpensive food group as well. So if you can, just trying those things, I guarantee, it's going to help your gut. Remember, I'm a stool person, not a blood person. But doing these things help your gut, help you live a long, healthy life. When it comes to fat, so they switched from like low carb, and it used to be no fat. Does anyone remember that? It was like a fad saying, hey, no fat at all. Now it's carbs that get the bad rap, which it's fine. But also, why do we attribute any food group to something being bad? That's why I try to, slow people down a little bit. So fat is no longer the issue, apparently, right? We have now keto diet, so now everyone's going high fat. But when it comes to fat, I say there's the good, the bad, the ugly. Good fats help with heart disease, it is an energy source in our body. It is a source of vitamins and essential fats as well. So it is good that we get these fats. You get them from olive oil. Canola oil actually has good fats, nuts, seeds, and certain types of fish. The bad one is kind of the saturated fat. They're showing just too much of it can lead to things like heart disease, those risk factors. Usually those are found in red meat, butter, cheese, and ice cream. And then the ugly one is trans fat. So a lot of us probably have heard of trans fat. It was probably, I want to say around 2010, they found out that does increase your risk of heart disease tremendously. And so luckily, FDA came in and said no companies really should be using trans fat in their food products. So it should be almost eliminated. However, I've seen some. I went into Aldi, I want to say it was probably a year or two ago, I bought peanut butter. I think it said natural peanut butter. And I brought it home, and then I was looking at the label. I don't look at the label a lot now, and that's my bad. But it did have trans fat in it. So again, peanut butter that I thought was pretty good. My daughter loves it. She eats it by the spoonful. It does have trans fat in it. And what's tricky about a label is they'll say 0 grams of trans fat, but that's anything below 0. So that could be 0.5, 0.25. So pretty tricky. They can claim 0, but it could have some in it. So to know, again, you look at the ingredients, and if it says hydrogenated anywhere in those ingredients, trans fat is in there. So be aware that it should be out, but it's usually found in processed foods. I can't remember my tip there. Yeah. And my tip, caution when choosing low-fat items. I know we think it's kind of a good thing, lower the fat, but what comes with that could be added sugars to make it taste good, or just added fluff in there. My principle more so is I say, instead of doing low fat, maybe you just change your portion size. Maybe instead of doing the portion size or double it, maybe you go back to portion or you go a little bit less. So like a full fat peanut butter, right? A tablespoon usually is the portion size. I know, doesn't seem like a lot, your thumb's worth, but instead of going the low fat option, maybe you do a half a tablespoon or something like that, just so you can have kind of the goodness out of it and eliminated the added stuff that comes with those low fat items. So just be aware. Kind of my tip there. And then protein, make it lean and don't overdo it. I can't tell you how many times people come to me and say, Remi, am I getting enough protein? I had an athlete ask me that the other day. And I'm like, I promise you probably are. We're in a country where protein usually is one that a lot of people get. However, there are instances, maybe vegan, vegetarian might be a little bit challenging. So, or protein is expensive. We've learned that over the course of the last few years. It's very expensive. So a lot of people, might not have the funds to have good quality or just animal sources of protein. But I'm here, and I think on the next slide to tell you, you can still do it through plant-based ways. It's just a little bit harder. But more so when it comes to protein, the best advice I can give you guys, get enough, and it probably for most of you guys is the palm of my hand or your hand, but having it at every meal and snack. That is the best way. As Americans, a lot of us tend to overdo protein at the end of the day. At dinner, at lunch, when you miss an opportunity kind of in the window of breakfast, and even at your snacks. But I promise you, I've studied a lot of geriatric health, so nutrition going into older age. I've studied a lot of that. I've studied a lot of muscle building just for the fact that I work with players who need to build more muscle. And I have found, and the players can attest to this, if you get enough protein, enough that you need at every meal and snack, you will maintain or build muscle. And it won't waste, right? Another thing about protein and why I put a fire on there, think about gas, think about paper, like paper to a fire. What happens? If you put it in there, it sparks up and it goes down really quickly. Okay, gas, same way. The fire goes up, then it goes down. That's your carbohydrates. That's your fruit, that's your vegetables, that's your grains, all those. But when it comes to protein, it's the wood. It's the logs to the fire. It keeps that fire going. So as far as your energy-wise, having protein in those meals also helps you to maintain that steady energy that you need throughout the day for your brain. So again, having it at every meal and snack. Females in the building, it's also very important as well, just from what our hormones do in our body as we age. So, I put 30 grams in here. That might be overdoing it, but what does 30 grams look like? 2 eggs and a cup of Greek yogurt. That's 30 grams just easily. If you get rid of 1 egg, probably that's enough for individuals. So that doesn't seem like a lot of protein, right? That's not 2 huge pork chops that you need, okay? 3 ounces of grilled chicken on a salad with cheese, a cup of milk, 8 shrimp and a cup of quinoa is enough. Or for dinner, 4 ounces of your favorite maybe animal product, or if you are vegan, vegetarian, half a cup of tofu. It's not that much. It's not, but a lot of people think I need a ton of protein. Just not true. Anything, I promise you, anything can be, too much of anything can be a bad thing, right? So spreading it out, getting good quality, but getting just enough. I tell people if you get too much protein, consider it expensive pee at that point, right? You're just gonna kind of pee it out. It's gonna take a lot for your liver and kidneys to kind of work that out, and you're just wasting money at that point. So just get enough and aim. I kind of put some recommendations there. And then I tell people don't miss the opportunity. At night isn't a good time to get a good source of protein as well. A lot of us like popcorn and or crackers and or ice cream going into bed. This is the one time I tell people if you can even get protein there, very good. Because you go into bed, you're kind of you are fasting, unless there's anyone in here who says they get up at 2 a.m. to have a snack. Then I would say you're probably not eating enough at the day if you feel hungry to need to do that. But protein helps to kind of keep that blood sugar maintained while you are sleeping, but also it's a good way to maintain. So casein. If you guys have heard of the old saying, Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey. Whey protein is kind of the milky, liquidy base to curds and whey or cottage cheese. And then the curd part is the casein. And it's a slow protein that you can get in at night that helps to kind of maintain that muscle structure. So good sources definitely found in dairy. So if you guys just had a pudding at night or a yogurt at night, you guys are doing it yourself. Very good. And then can you do it in a plant-based diet? I'm kind of going to scroll through this quick. The answer is yes, guys. The answer is yes. They came out with a documentary a while ago. I think it was a former athlete or like an MMA fighter who goes plant-based. You can. But what does 25 grams of protein look like? Well, 3 cups of quinoa or 6.5 tablespoons of peanut butter, 2 2/3 cups of beans. It's just a lot of food. Just a lot of food. And with plant-based products, it just doesn't have all the building blocks to get to a muscle. So you have to combine those. You can't just eat only quinoa and expect your muscle to happen. You need to combine that quinoa with black beans, or one of my favorite treats, adding peanut butter to Greek yogurt. The reason why, it's just because there's some building blocks in there that are missing from plant-based protein sources. So you do have to consider variety when it comes to those things. But it is possible, and I do have an athlete currently who kind of practices vegetarian and vegan. But benefits of including more plants: you increase your fiber, helps your gut, your bacteria in your gut love fiber, and that's one thing that just us as Americans, we just fall short on. So getting enough fruit and vegetables, getting enough plants is how you get there. Lowers body weight, weight management, ample carbs, and rich in fats. And hydration. Quickly, like we talk about Corey Stringer, and one thing about hydration: out of sight, out of mind. Right, so if you don't have a water bottle in front of you, thank you. If you don't have a water bottle in front of you, you don't have something to hydrate you, and yes, water, primary, but milk, 100% fruit juice. Coffee is okay. There's a moderation to coffee as well. But out of sight, out of mind, and I tell people lemonade, not apple juice, right? So when you do go to the bathroom, you want to look for the lemonade color, not the apple juice color. And then I'll kind of skim through the facts label. I like the facts label. They update it every year, but just, looking at the bottom, they added things that people are very low in. That's potassium, iron, calcium, magnesium, I think has made the label. So when you look at the label, this is your guide to your product that you're eating. Know that this is regulated. So everything they say on the front of a product can be fluff, right? It can be misleading, but this they cannot. This has to be true to its form. So use this as your guide to know if you're eating the right things. Is it a whole grain? Does it have hydrogenated oils? Does it meet the requirements that I need? We're just kind of going to skip those. And so quickly on eating away, they showed that average Americans eat or drink a third of their calories away from home. I truly believe this, if not more. We're just a very busy country. We work a lot, and it's very hard to eat everything at home. Very, very hard. Do I think you can eat away from home and be healthy? Yes, I truly believe you can. It does take some work. It takes some diligence. Obviously, eating a little bit poorly comes with a lower cost sometimes, but it can be done. And I know dietitians who work in fast food chains. I know them. They try to oversee it and make it as efficient as possible. In 2018, this is when they required establishments who had 20 or more to list calories on their menu. So you probably saw that. And so a lot of people who are big chains should have the calories. So it might just be going in ahead of time and looking at the menu and making the decision from there. And then it's a simple equation. If you want to lose weight, right, you might have to eat less than you burn, right? Or weight gain. You have to eat more than you burn, and weight management is just maintaining. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, does anyone know how many calories are in a pound? Good work. See, 3,500 calories in a pound. Okay, that means if you, throughout the course of a day, or actually a week, right? If you eat 500 calories, right, a day in any direction, right? If you increase the amount you need to maintain, you're probably going to gain weight. So if you eat 500 calories more than it is required for you to maintain weight, you're going to gain a pound at the end of the week. If you eat less than, or 500 less than the amount you need to maintain weight, you'll lose a pound at the end of the week. Very simple equation. But what does an extra 250 calories per day look like? So this is where I like to talk the weight management. If you add just 250 calories to your day and don't burn them, right, this amounts to about 2 pounds per month or 24 pounds a year. Doesn't seem like a lot, right? But kind of. At the end of the year, if you're like, I'm carrying 24 pounds more than I did. 250 calories, that doesn't seem like a lot. But I walk people through this instance, and I'm probably guilty of this. I just need one more cup of coffee. It was a late night. 20 calories right there. It's mid-afternoon. I ate breakfast, late or not at all, right? I'll just have a granola bar before lunch, no big deal. Maybe 100. I have some that are 250. Someone brought candy to work today. Just one bite, 80 calories right there, all right? You definitely need to taste your food as you're cooking. That's me. I feel like I've had my whole meal as I'm preparing food for my family. Just a little bite. I just need to see how it tastes, right? 40 calories. There's only a couple more bites of potatoes. I love, and I think in Minnesota we do that. It's just one bite left, right? I think we're more guilty of just keeping that bite there. Me, I'm gonna have it because I don't wanna waste food. 60 calories. Oops, I broke this cookie from the baking sheet. It's just one bite, another 30 calories. Okay, those are just estimates. Right then and there, that adds up into 330. So small bites make big differences, I tell people. Okay, but if you had a nightcap, right, and an additional 250, that's a whole meal at the end of it all, okay? So just think about, little bites matter, right? 250 calories doesn't seem like a big deal, but can add up. And so when you think about weight management, right, fine-tuning, looking at your practices, kind of, seeing in your day, how can you turn something like this into something healthy? Maybe it's going for a walk. You see the candy that was brought to work. You just say, not this time. Right? Or walk a different route in your office, right? But little things do matter, and I think that's how we wonder as kind of a society, how is that we keep building weight over time? It's things like these, okay? So easy ways to burn on the go. Rethink your drink. Do you need a carb load at your meetings? Appetizers is a must. Just make them count. This is a quick way that you could burn 250 calories. Just a 20-minute workout of these 4 circuits if you wanted to burn all those little extras you wanted to do. Okay. And then always I tell people have a plan. Don't make it an all or nothing. It's a journey, when it comes to weight management. But really tracking your meals, seeing where you're adding up, it can make a big difference. And just ideas of healthy snacking. Like I said, Brian, I told them if I can send these slides to you guys and they can pick them up or whatever. However you guys like it. But when it comes to a snack, think protein in there, think fiber. That will make your snack last, and healthy versions of those as well. And then goals are great, but habits are life-changing. So I give people, this 85-15% rule. This comes actually out of the dietary guidelines for Americans. 85% of the time, can you meet your recommendations? Can you meet those food groups? Can you get, even right now, if you focus on just getting the amount of fruit and vegetables you need a day, making that 85% of the time, and 15% of the time, I tell my athletes they are really on a 95.5 because I'm trying to win a Super Bowl just as bad as they are. So I do think food matters. But, it's okay to have those cheat days. It's okay to have those other days. That's called moderation. That's called living life. If you told me, Remi, you can't have ice cream, I would probably walk out this door and my mind would be set on ice cream. And I'd probably give it a good week. And then I'd go crazy for ice cream one day. And that's just not a healthy way of living, but just balancing it in your life as well. So yeah, just, thinking about some of those tips, how can you challenge yourself? Like I said, a lot of these basics, this past 3 months I've been working with the guys on those things that I just kind of told you guys in a crash course. So with that, I think that's my question time. I know we're running close, but yeah.
Yeah, but if you've got questions, this is so good. Would you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good. So good. All right, who's got some questions there? Yeah, right up front.
Hi. Question with this happened with high school students, let's say 400 in an orchestra, whatever, and they're having a party. What we found out was I think it was 50 to 60% were different cultures. Their parents required other foods, which you have to fit into the healthy realm.
Yep.
But if the parents weren't there, they'd eat pizza.
Very, very true. I know it's the pizza party, right? Is like the congratulation, but you do bring up a good point. Cultural kind of sensitivity. I have players that come from the islands. Like I said, the one from Chile. It's kind of balancing those as well. I think again, food brings people together, and I do want to recognize all those. And a fun thing is that I spoke on this topic is meeting the athlete where they are, so don't discredit them and what their food practices are, but seeing how you could build that into a healthy plate, and I guarantee you can. Yeah.
All right, Judy.
It's a little bit harder. It is a little harder. Pizza still is. It's one of my favorite food groups. I know it wasn't mentioned on there, but you could still do it.
The rest of them are eating pizza.
I know. Yeah, it's very hard. It's more, talking with those individuals to say, hey, how can I meet you? How can I help you in that way? Sometimes it's a give or take. At the end of the day, funds matter, location, resources, all those things to get it in the building. But I know it's a tricky one. It is. Maybe it's a day where you introduce the cultural foods. Might not be at pizza day, but at some other day. Bring the families. Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah. We bring in from Africa. Our GM is Ghanaian, so we try to bring in those food groups. But I had a cook-off with the athletes one time. I had their moms cook the dish because I didn't want my chefs to cook it. They're all from Minnesota, so I didn't trust that they would create fufu or we did jollof rice, which is I'm Nigerian, so that's a Nigerian African culture, and I had the moms cook it off to see who won. Yeah. So. Exactly, and I wanted them to traditionally pair it, and I wanted the whole building to taste it off, and we had a winner, but it was a way to bring it into the building. It's definitely tough, yeah.
Thank you so much. This was
You're
really
very
helpful. You didn't say anything about whey protein or protein powder. What's your
Very good.
opinion about that?
Very good. So remember the curds and whey. The whey is kind of the milk product, and whey protein, a dairy protein, is a fast-absorbing protein. So we give this to players post-workout. Why? Because this is where muscle building is so important. When it comes to any supplementation, protein powder is there. I have to look at it and say, is it a good one, and is it safe for the players? We have Muscle Milk in the building. That's because Gatorade is a partnership. But there is a lot of whey proteins out there. Optum Nutrition, Thorne is a product I love to bring in. I do say if you need it, right, post-workout is very key for them. If you need it, if you can add it into dishes, it is a good one to use. Yeah.
Is it all right? I hear so much lately about leaky gut, and I'll just pick an example. I love tomatoes.
Yeah.
They say raw tomatoes, do not eat raw tomatoes. How do you, and also like the nightshades and arthritis.
Yeah.
But I'm real curious about the leaky gut and the different things that apparently cause it.
Yeah. Very good question. So leaky gut, essentially what that is you have a whole system where your food is processed in your body, from your throat to your stomach down to your esophagus and then out to your body. So what they mean by leaky gut is within that system somewhere it's leaking into our bloodstream. Okay, it can cause things like potentially fibromyalgia, anxiety, depression. There's a lot of things associated with the gut and all those things. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And so, do I think the nightshade family, which is peppers, tomatoes, all those, I think everyone in this room has different foods that can irritate their system. For some, it might be nightshades. For some, it might be avocados. For some, it might be coffee, caffeine, all those things. I do this because I'm a food sensitivity specialist, and things like fibromyalgia, migraines, all those things that I think are connected, all those things that I connected with food, I think it's for the individual. Right, but off the bat, if you feel like you're very fatigued, very tired, very have no energy, if migraines are presenting themselves, just achiness all the time, for sure. One way that you could do that, just tracking your food. Seeing there's a diet called FODMAP. You can look this up. It is free. FODMAP, FODMAP. And you can start just with those major food groups and taking those out one at a time to see if those symptoms reverse themselves. And but the way I test 170 foods and chemicals, sorry, and the players do this as well, and we take those foods out, ones that they're very high sensitive to. And like I said, it can be anywhere from salmon, whey protein, tomatoes, avocados, things that are healthy, but just for that individual, it's like their body is inflaming itself on it. Do I think leaky gut is a thing? Yes. I do think food is a major source of that. It really depends on you. And unless I counseled you, I really couldn't tell you if it's tomatoes. And I'd hate to bring out tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, because you have vitamin C there. But maybe it's something else that is in your diet consistently that you could take out and reverse. You are very welcome. Yeah.
I have a million questions.
Oh, yes.
But let's narrow it down to, I just retired a year and a half ago.
Congratulations.
And
yeah.
I went from working a physical job, basically 25,000 steps a day, plus physical work, to 0.
Yeah.
And I've gained like 15 pounds in the last year.
Yeah.
Even though I eat well, I don't eat any processed foods whatsoever.
Yep.
How can I determine the best way to lose weight at this point? Because I'm different than the athletes. They want to put on weight and muscle.
Yeah.
I don't. I just want to take off the fat.
Yeah, very good question. And even then, there's a lot of them that I worked on that wants to maintain their muscle, but really lose, like you said, the body fat.
Yep.
One things that I've learned, and even my mom, she's going almost close to 70. Oh man, she could be older. Don't tell her I forgot that. But I've learned that her practices have changed over time. Me being a former athlete to where I am now, having kids changed. And I think one thing you have to realize is that your food practices have to change along with that. I know you say that you don't eat. One thing, don't skip meals. That's never good for your metabolism. Yep. Right. It might be just making sure your meals are there, but dropping the calories in some way, shape, or form, whether that be fruit and vegetables, low calories. But cardio, just getting out and walking, if you could.
Yeah.
I saw that with my mom recently. She just walks every day. And just right then and there, it's just a nice, easy, low impact thing that you can do. We have beautiful lakes around here when we get to
Right.
summertime. But those one things that you could just lower calories but maintain that activity. But it's got to come in one of those ways, either eating and or activity just brought in, but also just activity in itself, good for the joints, good for the muscle to maintain. So those are things that I've even found with my athletes, but even low impact stuff like Pilates, I've told a lot of my athletes recently, go to Pilates. Very low impact, but very core-based, very all of that. I've seen tremendous changes even there, and you can get a lot of free workouts online. But yes, those are kind of my quick tips. Yeah.
Second question,
Yeah.
if I can. You talked about the fatty liver.
Yeah.
What is the best way to bring that back to health?
Very good question. So yes, the gentleman came to me. He said he doesn't drink. So usually this is found in drinkers. And he's like, Remi, I do not drink. Yep. And so that would be one. But the fact that he said it's his weight. So he said even if he drops like 15, 20 pounds, so me and him are going to go on a journey here together soon, just doing that can hopefully reverse fatty liver. Now it gets to a point that if it gets to scarring, think about it like a muscle, you can't reverse it. But just from that, what it sounds like, same kind of, if you can just get the weight down in those ways, and again, incorporating more plants, being a little bit more active in terms of cardio, but I'm not talking about go run a marathon. First of all, you can't get me to do that. I don't have any pleasure in running that long of distance. But things like biking, low impact, just walking, it will help. And so losing the weight is usually there.
Third quick question.
Yeah.
I almost forgot it. Does it pay to eat more often in a day or just 3 big meals? Because I've heard it pays to eat like 5 times a day
Yeah.
in smaller amounts.
Yep. Very, very good question. It just depends on the individual. If you are used to skipping breakfast and only eating 2 meals, I am not going to say, hey, go eat 5 meals. That might be a little bit daunting, right? But if you are a person who is able to maintain 5 healthy, good meals, remember protein has to come along with those meals, and are spread out, right? You're not eating at 9 o'clock and then eating at 10 a.m., right? Every 2 to 3 hours, that's okay as well. It matters the calories, right? Your breakfast might not look the same for a 5-meal person versus a 3-meal person. So as long as that's spread out, totally fine with that. But I am also a person that, I've seen people do 3 healthy meals a day and they feel good, they're active, their brain, their energy there is good. That's totally fine as well. Again, I think it comes down to the composition. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Remi, thank you so much for being with us. I want to respect your time. If you've got questions for Remi afterwards or for Gigi afterwards, be sure to stop on up. But it has been a pleasure to have you with us. Gigi, we love having you with us, and I love the bonus, and just so grateful to have you here. Come back in a couple of weeks. We've got a great Lunch and Learn again with Ray Williams coming up that week. But have a great week, everyone. Thank you for being here today.